Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. It's getting late in the summer and it's time to start planting fall garden. Today we'll plant some fall vegetables. Also, the corn is getting ready to pick. We're going out in the garden to look at our corn. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Goodwin's Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Tom Ashore. Mr. Tom is a master gardener in Tipton County, and Mr. D will be with us later. All right, Mr. Tom, we always appreciate you coming by and planting our garden for us.
Appreciate it being invited.
All right, so fall gardening. What are we going to be planting today?
Well, we're going to plant some spinach, mustard greens, koi, which are romaine lettuce, and some beets.
All right.
And the nice thing about fall crops is they don't need pollinators.
Good.
So we don't have to worry about bees or anything else doing our work for them.
Okay. All right, so how do we get started with our fall vegetable planting?
Well, worked up the soil a little bit, soften it up.
That's good.
Next thing I'm going to do is plant the seeds.
Okay.
Now, the seeds are very fine and kind of somewhat difficult to handle. One of the tricks I find that works really well, excuse me, is an old spice container. It's got the little holes in the top.
Yeah.
It works out great to put the seeds out. And I also find that taking the hose that's in the top, I cover all but 2.
Okay.
You don't want to overplant because that means you're going to overthin. So what you do is just take the bag. In this case, it's going to be purple top spinach, mustard greens, excuse me. You just pour it in there. Put the lid back on.
Yeah, so you have tape over the top.
Yeah, I got tape. Like I said, the only thing's not covered is 2 bottom holes.
Okay.
And I don't know if you can see it or not, but it puts out just about that much seeds.
It's pretty smart. I like that idea.
And now, on the 4 type of greens that most people plant is turnips, collard, kale, and spinach greens.
Oh, yeah.
You plant them about 18 inches apart.
Okay.
So there's no need to plant the whole row.
Okay.
All you literally have to do, and I'm going to put down my marker first because I may end up forgetting what I got where.
Which is why it's always a good idea to label, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially when you get to my age, I can't remember why I went to the bathroom, you know? Okay, so you put the marker there. Now, normally, of course, you would have a lot bigger garden.
Sure.
But in our case, it's going to be small for demonstration purposes. And since they're going to plant them about 18 inches apart, that's the final spacing, then all you have to do is just tap 18 inches, tap 18 inches, tap, and 18 inches, tap.
How about that? Okay.
And it's all done.
That's it.
Yeah, now all I got to do is just rake over it.
Okay. Because they are real small seeds.
They're very small.
So they don't have to be buried that deep.
Okay. Matter of fact, about a 1/4 inch is pretty much standard.
Okay.
Now, what do I do with the seeds? Well, I just return them to the packet.
There you go, okay.
Now I just return those to the pack. I'm not covering them up yet. I'm going to cover them all at the same time.
Okay. How'd you learn that trick? By covering it up.
Some people have been using it in the past.
Okay.
The problem is some people used to use salt shakers, and they would mix it with sand and some other items like that.
Okay.
I find that this just works great. Okay, now we're going to do Bloomingdale spinach.
Seeds are a little bigger.
Just a little bit. About the same size as radish seeds.
Okay.
But they still will go through the hose.
Oh yeah, they're coming out.
Okay. Now in this case, I'm going to go ahead and plant the whole row.
Okay.
Because the spacing is going to be about 3 inches apart in the final, so it'd be easier to do it that way. And I'm just going to go over here about another 18 inches and but you notice I'm doing it thinly because I don't like to thin. Okay,
All right.
that's it for that. And then put my marker. I should have done this first.
Okay, can you get over there?
It's all right, I just got it.
Okay.
I did it right about there. It'll be close enough that I'll be able to identify it.
That's close.
Next thing we're going to do is plant some romaine lettuce.
Okay.
Oops, first of all I got to return this back to the packet.
And most folks like the lettuce. In their fall vegetable gardens.
Yeah, my wife is really fond of romaine lettuce.
Yeah.
I particularly prefer the iceberg lettuce, but there ain't no way it'll grow in this area. Idaho, maybe, but not in our area.
Not exactly Memphis, right?
Now, this is the romaine lettuce. Now, before I try doing this, I'm going to, the lettuce are thin and long, so I'm not sure if it's going to work through here or not, but we're going to find out.
Ah.
I didn't check it.
So we're gonna do a trial, huh? Just to see if it works. Yeah, it came out.
It works?
Yeah, it works.
So, same idea. You want to have them about 3 or 4 inches apart.
Okay.
So this time I'm going to put my marker down first.
Okay. All right.
And then thinly put it down.
I stand.
And that's it.
Okay.
Now, if I was doing a big garden, then I would probably use my seeder machine.
Okay.
You pour it in there and you walk along and it drops the seeds at the right distance.
Okay.
It even has a little marker, so you mark the next roll. It drags a bar across. You set it to 12 inches and it will
Smart.
put your line 12 inches apart.
Okay. Now, Mr. Tom, in the little time that we have left, how about we go ahead and cover it up and get it,
Okay.
fertilized and watered in?
All right, on the fertilizer, on the greens, spinach greens, turnip greens, it doesn't matter what greens. It could be kale, collard greens, mustard greens, and of course turnip greens. They all need high nitrogen, 0 phosphorus, 0 potassium, because you want fast, all green growth.
Right.
So what we're going to do is we're going to take, and first of all, I'm going to put some 3400,
Oh, yeah.
which is your regular lawn fertilizer, but it's almost, well, it's 1/3 nitrogen.
Yeah.
Now, these are going to be baby plants, so you don't want to overdo it. All you do is want a little light dusting. Later, those are on the spinach and the mustard greens.
Okay.
Again, all you want is greens. You notice I didn't put down much.
Well, it's not much.
Just like a baby. You don't feed a baby a big full course
not
meal
much.
when it's born.
Right.
Same thing here. Now I take my garden rake. Now you'll find that you actually end up using this side more than this side.
Okay.
And all you do is I'm just going to rake the seeds in, just like that. Since they're going to be planted shallow anyway, they don't have to be planted deep. And just by raking the soil over it,
It's right
like
over
that,
the top.
that just kind of spreads them out.
That's pretty good. Gets the fertilizer into the ground, the seeds are covered up.
Yep. The only thing left to do is water.
All right.
Now,
Because after putting in that fertilizer, you got to have the water, right?
you gotta have the water. Well, the plants are going to need water. They're going
And the
to
plants
have
are
to be
gonna need it.
watered frequently during the early stages because they are planted shallow. especially on low humidity days like today.
Right.
They need to be watered more frequently until they start coming up and producing roots, and then they can find the water themselves.
Okay.
Isn't this cute? I use it for decoration. This is the first time I actually use it for watering because it's got the hose in it.
It serves the purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna lightly water over the top, right?
Mm-hmm. And you just want to water where you want the seeds to come up.
Okay.
Of course, the rain may throw a trick on you, but done.
Voila. So there we have it.
Okay.
We appreciate that, Mr. Tom.
Well, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. There are a number of gardening events going on in the next couple of weeks. Here are just a few that might interest you. All right, we have Mr. D out in the family plot garden, and we're gonna look at our corn. So what do you want to start with the corn, Mr. D?
Well, we've got corn. We've got a corn crop. But this is probably a pretty classic example of why you don't see a lot of sweet corn in raised beds.
Yeah.
Sweet corn takes a lot of space to grow. I mean, even if every one of these stalks produced an ear, which it did,
What you did.
we've got 5. I'm not sure yours over there really produced one.
It tried
That's-
to produce one.
That's 5 ears of corn. You and I could make a meal off those 5 ears of corn. But this corn requires a tremendous amount of water. It has a massive root system, and it requires a tremendous amount of water to make a good corn crop. And we see here some classic symptoms of this corn probably didn't get enough water.
Okay.
When you have marginal leaf burn on just about any plant, that indicates that you either have too much water or too little water. Here we have marginal leaf burn showing up on this
It's classic.
corn leaf, classic.
Yeah.
On the edges of the leaf, it's burned. And I would say it's lack of water, not enough water. But other than that, I mean, I don't see any insect pressure on the corn. I'm gonna pull one of these. I mean, we're a little late to harvest sweet corn, and I'm gonna check it out and see what we have here.
Look at that.
Now, we should have harvested this a few weeks ago, and you would actually have had some sweet corn. I guess this is peaches and cream. Either that, it cross-pollinated with something it wasn't supposed to cross-pollinate with. I assume it's peaches and cream. But you see, you have a lot of empty spaces on the cob here. That indicates that 100% pollination did not occur.
Right.
And that could have been because of lack of water. The way corn is pollinated, the pollen, the male structure of the plant is up here on the tassel. And when the pollen is produced here and it falls off, and it falls on the silks.
Okay.
Every one of these silks, silk is a hollow tube, and the pollen travels through the silk to a kernel of corn. And for a kernel of corn to be produced, pollen must have
Has to
traveled
pollinate.
through that silk. Now, 100-degree temperatures can adversely affect
Yeah, sure.
pollination, and we had some of that
Yes, we did.
in the past few weeks, which could have damaged the pollination here a little bit. But this here corn cob is not very large in diameter. I think it got thirsty, and it didn't really like the hot weather that we had. Also, not only is water an issue in a raised bed like this, but see how close we have this okra?
Yeah, spacey.
The okra seems to be thriving, and the okra has outcompeted this corn.
Yes.
It's outcompeted it, and it's like a foot apart, a foot away from the corn. So that's another issue. When it did rain or when it did get watered, the okra grabbed most of the water
Yeah.
very quickly. But I don't see any insect damage. I don't see any evidence of corn earworm on this one.
So corn earworm is pretty much the major problem of.
Corn earworm is a
Insect
major problem
problem.
of sweet corn. It
Okay.
really is. I don't know, this sweet corn may be BT sweet corn. It may have Bacillus thuringiensis engineered into it, and that would reduce the damage from corn earworm.
Now,
There's
what if
also,
it wasn't BT engineered? Then what? I mean,
then you might have very likely have an infestation of corn earworm.
okay.
But I don't see any evidence of that, and it may simply be because this corn's kind of isolated, and there's not a lot of corn earworm moths that flying over would think that this is a cornfield.
Okay.
Probably,
Yeah, that makes sense.
you know. But I don't see any evidence of damage.
Okay. So that's pretty much the only pest that we know of corn is the corn.
Well, there's also a corn borer that gets in the whorl of a small corn plant, and it will feed in the whorl as those baby leaves are emerging.
Right.
And even though it's a little bitty worm and it's feeding on the little bitty leaves, as the plant grows, the leaf emerges, and those little bitty holes that were in the whorl are now big holes in the leaves.
Okay.
And so when you see corn leaves that have big holes in the large leaves, that's probably an indication that back several weeks ago it was infested with the corn borer, European corn borer. And but I don't see any evidence of that either.
I don't
So I don't. And those are the two worms that are the biggest problem with sweet corn production: corn borers and corn earworms.
Okay. Now, corns are they heavy feeders? You know, fertilizers? Are they pretty
Corn
heavy?
requires quite a lot of nitrogen, and you know, in agricultural production, you put at least a pound of nitrogen for every bushel of yield that you want. If you want 300 bushel corn, you need to put 300 units of nitrogen out there.
Wow.
So yeah, it requires quite a lot of nitrogen, and that might be a limiting factor here too.
Yeah,
This
that's
corn
what I
is not
wondered.
dark green, it's kind of light green, so it probably didn't get quite as much nitrogen as it wanted. However, the okra over here has a good dark color, and
does.
it apparently is getting adequate nitrogen. But you got to understand, when you have a raised bed like this, those okra roots are out here by this cucumber. The corn roots are out here. The corn roots are over here on the other side of the okra, and it's in the squash area. So the roots are just mingled all together. And you know, just because you planted them in a plant this big, just because you planted it in a little row, doesn't mean the roots are going to stay right there. They're taking off.
Spread
They're
out.
looking for water. And okra is more successful in drier conditions. Okra doesn't require as much water as
That's right.
corn. It's more related, you know, it kind of acts like cotton. Cotton can get along fine under dry conditions most of the time, and hot conditions.
yeah.
They love, okra and cotton love hot weather.
Yeah.
Corn, not so much.
Not so much.
So my recommendation is the raised bed next year, let's don't plant sweet corn. If you want to plant sweet corn, let's plant about 6 rows right over there next to the building, all up and down through there, and then we'll have sweet corn.
All right, well, we appreciate that, Mr. D. Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us a letter or an email with your gardening questions. Send your email to familyplot@wkno.org. The mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee, 38016. All right, this is our Q&A session. Mr. Tom, you come in and help us out, all right?
Okay.
Here's our first viewer email. Our Concord grapevine is about 4 years old, and this past year it put out hundreds of grape clusters. My mouth was watering at the thought of homemade grape jelly. Then my beautiful grapes I had been watching over started shriveling up. They look like nasty dried up raisins. I still have about 40% of my grapes, and they are just starting to ripen, but boy am I perplexed about the dead ones. Any thoughts on what happened? They start out with a dark circle spot and then just dry up. And this is from Dina here in Memphis, Mr. D. She's perplexed, but she gave us a hint. They start off with dark circle spots, then they dry up. We know what that is, don't we?
Sounds like black rot.
Sounds like black rot to me.
That's the number one, the most serious and most common disease of grapes in the southeast United States, and probably everywhere. and it's one of the reasons that we recommend putting grapes on a regular spray schedule. It can easily be controlled if you do that. And the very fact that she's got as many that have survived, quite a few of them have survived, tells you that that is a good indicator that if you take a few steps to try to control the disease, you can. And on our home orchard spray guide under grapes, it basically recommends starting out very early. You need to start when the new shoots just begin to put out with just a fungicide. Captan or Mancozeb is what's on the UT's recommended list. And then at pre-bloom, when the first blossoms open, is one of the most important times to spray to control black rot, because most damage from black rot occurs from pre-bloom through 4 weeks after bloom. Mancozeb and Immunox are the most effective and what UT recommends. Okay. But starting pre-bloom, when the first blossoms open, you spray with that fungicide. Then again, when most of the blooms have fallen off, you spray again. And then every 7 to 10 days, you spray. And if you just get in the habit of doing that, if you see other problems out there like Japanese beetle, for instance, all you need to do is put a little carbaryl in that spray mixture, and one application will take care of both the Japanese beetle and the black rot. Right. But very, very common problem. It's common even on wild muscadine. You'll see black rot.
I see it all the time.
What publication is that the people can research?
That is, I accessed this through the Red Book, UT's Red Book, and it's Home Orchard Spray Guide.
All right, and we actually have those publications in our office, so if you want to come by, you can get them from the office. Sure can. All right, Dina, hope that helps you out. It is a common problem, that black rot. Okay?
Very common.
Here's our next viewer email. My mums in the flower bed are blooming early. They have always bloomed correctly in the fall. Do I need to do anything so my mums will still bloom in the fall? Why are they blooming early? And this is Cindy. I can tell you why they're blooming early. Because they need to be pinched back in the summer. Okay? So because they were not pinched back in the summer, hence they're blooming now. But here's the deal. We're late in the season. So I wouldn't pinch them back now because you might not have any blooms to enjoy in the fall.
Right.
Okay? So I would just leave them be, Miss Cindy, and you'll be fine. But that's why you don't have it.
Well, next year.
Yeah, next year. Yeah.
I can tell Cindy that I got the same problem. Yeah. I just thought I had super chrysanthemums because I get 2 blooms a year. In the fall and in the early summer, it starts blooming. Not as strong as it did in the fall. Right. But I'm going to start learning to pinch back.
Yeah, you have to pinch them back, a few times in the summer, and you'll be just fine because it makes for a compact, full plant when you do that. But at this point, I wouldn't pinch them back because we're just too late in the season. So enjoy your blooms now, Miss Cindy, and just remember this for next year. You have to pinch them back a few times in the summertime, and you'll be just fine. All right, here's our next viewer email. I have a tulip poplar about 25 years old that exhibits some strange symptoms. It has large, rough, dark crotches from which somewhat spindly branches grow. Some of these branches curve toward the ground. Also, the leaves of the tree stay curled along the edges and don't fully form the typical shape. What's causing my tulip poplar to do this? Is it better to put this tree out of its misery before it gets even bigger and more expensive to cut down? The tree continues to grow, although it drops a lot of dead wood in my yard and doesn't look all that good. And this is from Randy. What do you think about that, Mr. D? A couple of thoughts here with this one.
Yeah, it's probably one of the cankers. There's a couple of cankers that affect tulip poplars. This may be something that you might want to get a certified arborist out to take a look at.
I agree with that.
You can treat these. Both of the cankers, I think Nectria is one and Fusarium canker is the other. Both of these are fungal type, fungal in nature, and you can have some success with fungicides. You also can cut out some of those, but on the central leader, in that kind of situation, the way when you cut that out, you cut the whole tree down.
It's gonna be tough.
But that's a state tree of Tennessee, is that right?
Yes, it is.
Tulip
it's the state tree, tulip poplar.
I don't think it's going to kill the tree. But again, you might want to have a certified arborist come out there. I mean, the fact that it's dropping limbs is not a bad thing, because a tree that's growing, and if it's growing and it's producing, the upper canopy, it always will be shading out the lower limbs, and it'll be dropping limbs all the time. So this is just a fairly common problem on this tree. On
Right,
Tulip
cankers,
poplar.
yeah, big
Right.
problem. Verticillium wilt is something I thought about because he mentioned that the leaves are not the full size that they need to be. So that's something else
Right.
that may be causing that as well. So
That
just a
would be
couple
more
things.
serious.
Yeah, that'd be very serious.
That would be more
Yeah.
serious.
But a certified arborist could definitely tell you that,
Right.
give you the information that you would need. All right, Mr. Tom, Mr. D, we're out of time.
Thank you.
Good deal.
That's all the time we have for today. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Good Winds Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.